Welcome back, everybody, to the Insightful Podcast. We gain insight in order to move forward in life. Today, we have a very special guest, Samuel, and it is episode 14. Samuel, how are you doing today?
I'm very good.
Very
Yourself?
good. Doing good, man. Doing good. I'm happy to be here. Okay, let's get into this. So, Samuel, can you introduce yourself to the audience and explain what you do and what you kind of like post on social media?
Sure. My name is Samuel Carr. I make social media as well as do Hollywood stuff, whether it be modeling, acting. I've done a couple of business ventures, running one right now, as well as usually I post rock climbing stuff on the social media, as well as just fun, entertaining stuff. It doesn't have to be super specific, um, as long as I kind of post fairly consistently.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what I do.
For sure. Okay, so let's get into the social media side first. So I noticed that you have like 197,000 followers on Instagram, 623,000 on TikTok. Like it's very impressive. When did you start posting? Like when did you get into it?
I got into it about 3 years ago, I would say. Maybe coming up on four now, even. I've actually run through multiple accounts. When I was on TikTok, I had an account that got up to 400K, and then it got completely removed. So I started back at zero after a
Damn.
year and a half. That was great. Uh, that was because I was posting too many climbing videos at high heights, which got flagged and, eventually banned.
That's like dangerous or something.
Right. So it's part of the reason why I moved to Instagram because they don't flag that stuff nearly as much. But I just post fitness stuff, rock climbing, showing that fitness doesn't have to be one way. It can be built within your life in a fairly uh, simple way that is easy. It doesn't have to be your whole existence. And yeah, I mean, it's more to inspire people to uh, get any exercise in, any movement in will help you a lot, and pretty much any type of exercise. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
For sure. So when that account got taken down at like 400K, I feel that maybe a lot of people would have given up, like seeing all that progress, like it getting taken away. What was your mindset when you seen that, and like how were you able to still want to grow another social media page after that?
Um, it was never something that was designed to make me money. I never was really in it for the followers. I was more so in it for getting views. Those were more valuable to me at the time, and I think are still more valuable to me now. Just because exposure is good for building all sorts of other things. Like if I want to get into X, Y, or Z business, now I have a community of people that can tell me whether it's a good idea or if my idea is dumb. It's the turnaround pace for whether what you're doing works or not is extremely fast, and I find that very valuable because I don't have a lot of experience, right? So it's a way to get experience on what works and what doesn't on large numbers of people very quickly, which I, enjoy. And of course, over time, I learned that like, oh, there's a social aspect to this that I find very enjoyable. But that wasn't my initial reason for going into it.
For sure. So your initial reason was just like sharing your journey, right? And like showing people that like fitness was not as hard as they may think it is.
Now it's that. The initial reason was a more corporate in a way. It was more of a way of it was a system. I figured if I posted 5 videos a day, every single day, eventually I would get a lot of views.
Mm-hmm.
That worked. It took a lot of work, but it certainly worked. Now I post, less than that, and I try to do more quality. But um, it was a way to see what works and what doesn't, as far as what large numbers of people enjoy, and I found that very valuable.
For sure, yeah. And you probably like learned a lot about a bunch of different things just with social media, right? Like even the fact like growing a page to a lot of people is very difficult, and the fact that you've grown multiple pages just proves that that's not the case, right?
No, I don't think it's very difficult. To be honest, like the it's not that each day is difficult, it's that doing it every day is difficult.
Yes.
I try posting 5 videos a day for years without a single day off. It's hard, like, at least that aspect of it. It wasn't that much work per day,
Yeah.
for especially my type of content. It was very on the fly, very quick. I maybe spent up to 2 hours on it a day. It wasn't, and for something that doesn't pay you, it's not the best return, but, it was also fun. But yeah, if you post every day and it's something that you're genuine about, you enjoy, I think even if you're really bad at something, the progress of getting better at something, if you're posting that on social media, that works. If you're really good at something, if you're a master at something and you're posting that on social media, that works. If you're personable, that works. Like, there's so many different avenues via social media you can do. I mean, of course, it depends, like, okay, well, what are you trying to achieve with social media? Because it's not going to give you what you think it's going to give you, usually. You know,
Hmm.
the number of people that make money on social media, even for reference, at one point on TikTok, I was getting 1 million views every single day, 30 million views a month, um, $1,000 a month. Like, the views and how they translate to like actual money is not there. So if that's your purpose for it, uh, do something else. Like, if you want to get those views to then market for a business and then you get money from that, or you're doing it because you just want to post your journey and you want that online social connection, that works too. But if it's just like purely financial, there's much better ways to do it, I think.
For sure. Yeah. I think like too, like nowadays with social media, a lot more people that are like going viral or getting a lot of views are the people that are relatable to audience, right? Because I think a lot of people are sick and tired of seeing stuff that like doesn't relate to them at all. I started posting like on my own personal Instagram like relatable like gym content, and it started doing amazing. But when I was like doing like, oh, this is a full chest workout, or this is like how I eat or whatever, it would never do well you know that's like the
Right.
big change I've seen a lot in social media.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think with the decrease in the average number of uh, conversations, I don't know, someone has in a day with someone in real life, like,
Yeah,
it's gonna just become more apparent or more popular even over the years.
for sure. And I also think like even though like we're the most like connected generation ever in history, we're like the loneliest because we have all these like people on our phones that we could talk to, text, but they're not like real connections. Nothing like compared to talking to someone in person.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I don't think that's something that's gonna change, to be honest. At least not for a long time. Um, I think tech will build up to a point where people will try and replace social connections with tech. I mean, we've been doing it for thousands of years, even with books. We stop telling stories to each other and started writing books, right? So I think
Yeah,
it's just the progression of things, and as things get further from human to human storytelling, we'll get more and more mental issues, and uh, that's just how it's going to be for a long, long time, I think, to be honest.
for sure. Yeah. Do you think there's any fix to that at all? Like, have you thought about that?
The
Like any
fix,
fix?
um, so it depends on how sophisticated um, the biology is around social connection, right? Because it's like, okay, if we can get tech up to a point where we can replicate that, then that works. And maybe we're just in a phase to where tech isn't quite up to par. Like, maybe it's the seeing the face that makes that connection in a way to where, you're not just depressed and anxious and lonely, right? But we don't know. Like, I've read some research about it, what actually makes those connections feel right, right? But so I think it all depends on if we can replicate it via tech, and if not, then there'll probably be a movement of people who go back to more human to human stuff. It's happened a number of times in history, like even um, not the exact same thing, but even like Native Americans, for example, before they had the culture of using every part of the animal and all that sort of thing. they did go rampant and almost drive every animal to extinction in North America. And then they were like, oh, we messed up. So then they created this culture of use every part of the animal, respect the
Hmm.
animal, all that sort of thing. And then the animal population rose back up. So either we'll have a cultural shift like they did, or tech will get sophisticated enough. But usually I try to see things optimistically. So, I mean, obviously there are and all sorts of ways the world could end, whatever, but I just mean if it's going to work, here are the ways I think it might work.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a really good opinion about it. So, what has been like your major upside to posting content? Like, I know you kind of mentioned it before, but I guess like maybe like a certain experience that you had because you had the social media. And then what has been like the biggest downside to like growing a social media account? You know, if it's like
Sure.
negative comments or all that kind of stuff.
Um, I'd say the biggest upside is probably staying up to date on even just slang is really helpful in general towards people of all ages, really, depending on what age your content goes to. Um, I don't know. I like the consistency of it, to be honest. There aren't, I work within the arts, right? So, and in business, and all those things are very fast and ever changing, um, and different and unreliable in what you need to do. With social media, it's like, I know if I post this number of videos a day, then I'm chilling. As long as the videos are, fairly good, you're fairly personable, and you're posting what you're already doing in the day. Like you're not trying to create, rather you're trying to document.
Yeah.
Um, then it's a very grounding type of work to where you know exactly what you need to do, and in that way, it's very low stress, in my opinion, at least. Of course, downsides are um, there's a lot of BS, of course. There's a lot of people trying to make money on social media with weird random tactics that are it kind of gets annoying in that way. There's a lot of negative comments, of course, and the more successful you get, the more negative comments you get. Um, a lot of people like negative comments because they're funny, which they are, but then it gives the impression that everyone hates this creator when it's like, no. Like, go look at any of Joe Rogan's videos, for example, on Instagram or whatever app. Most of the comments are going to be like, look at this 50-year-old piece of ham looking chimpanzee. Like, there'd be crazy things in the comments. But in general, like, there are millions and millions and millions and millions of people that listen to him, that are inspired by him, that don't comment because you're not going to comment like, oh, thank you. I mean, some people do, which is nice, of course, but the percentage is very low, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I like there's only been like one time I can remember where I actually watched like a YouTube video and it was very life changing in the moment. It wasn't just some motivation, it was like actual practical advice. And I went out of my way to like write like a long comment, but I never like say thank you or oh this was a good point because like you're saying, I feel people are more inclined to say something negative than to, if they have something positive on their mind, they're just gonna keep it to themselves kind of.
Right. Yeah. So
For sure.
I think that's the main negative. The other negative is that uh, it's very easy to build an audience on um, something that you don't want, right? So like, you know, just because a video does well doesn't necessarily mean that you should be making that content. And I've definitely fallen into that trap of like, oh, I make a lot of unhinged videos because they're funny, and I like those. But I've certainly done videos where it's like, um, it's attracted the wrong audience, and when I say wrong, I more mean like an audience that one, I don't want to talk to, uh, but two, it also just isn't useful as far as like if you look at it even from like a business standpoint. Like, um, one of the reasons I stopped making a lot of like pretty boy modeling type videos, of course, I have all this free content that I get from modeling, all these photos that I could be posting, and yet I don't post them. Why? It's because it attracts the wrong audience. I don't, you know, I'm not if I'm gonna use slang, I'm not I don't want an audience that's just gonna like glaze me in the comments, you know. Um, but whatever audience you're looking for is what you should post, even if it gets less views than something that something else that you don't want the audience for, right? So like, I know I explained that badly, but um, yeah, I mean, I already said it, so.
Yeah. So I guess like what would your advice be to someone that maybe is starting to grow on social media and it's from videos that they really don't want to associate with, but they are performing well? Like how do you get over that like mental hurdle of like, okay, I need to post the stuff I actually want to post, but this isn't performing as well? What would you say to someone like that?
So, while it may seem like things perform well because a lot of people like them, it's usually more so the case on average that things perform well because an algorithm picks it up. So,
Hmm.
um, what a lot of content creators do is they'll find a video that does well, that explodes, right? And then they'll recreate the same video that's very, very similar many, many, many times until their audience is burned out on it, and then their channel implodes from the inside, right? Um, so I think it's fine to do that, like to milk something like that, but spread it out. Because, so basically, at least how I understand it is that um, when your video first goes out, it goes out to your followers first, right? And depending on the likes and comment ratio of the followers, if the followers like it, then it gets spread out to everyone else. But if the followers don't like it, then it crashes and burns. So you want to make sure that your base following is enjoying that content. That way it can be spread to everyone else. Um, so if you want to change that, uh, I would still post that same type of video that maybe you don't want to post so much, but maybe like once a month or not very often. You want to do that just to like, it's like if you're trying to quit coffee or something, right? Like just a little hit, like once in a while, you know.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
yeah, to keep your audience, because if you have a downward trend um, on your channel, it's hard to recover. It's harder to recover from that. So if you have a video that does really well once in a while, it can kind of save you from having to go completely down into the trough before having to rise back up. So then you insert other videos that you think might work, because social media is about experimentation, right? So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put in this video. Let's see if that works. Let's see if that works. And eventually, if you post enough, that's why I posted 5 times a day, by the way, because you know what the hell works when you post 5 times a day. 5 times, even 100 days is, 500 videos. You're going to get something that works out of that. If you're
Yeah.
putting the smallest amount of effort towards each video. So you're going to find something that the algorithm's going to want to pick up. And then if that thing is related to maybe a little closer, doesn't have to be exactly what you want your audience to be on, right? Because then you can run with that, right? I was going to say, because most content that's really inspirational and really meaningful doesn't do well at first because you don't have the um, authority to say that and for people to take you seriously. Like, unless you have already a history of being a master at something, or you've you have some sort of other authority on that subject, like you're a doctor, or like if you're doing health and you're a doctor, right? That would be an example. But if you're just a random guy on social media with 5 followers talking about, let's say someone really famous said the same thing, it would do really well, but yours isn't going to do well because, you
Yes, there's
don't
no
have
name
authority.
behind it.
Exactly. So especially most things that appeal to a lot of people are really general and everybody already knows it. They just need to be reminded. But they don't need to be reminded by you because you don't have authority and they're not going to care. So
Exactly.
um, you can do that when you're bigger, and then it comes off as more impactful. And it was just as impactful as when you started, but then you have the authority to back it up and that sort of
Yes,
thing.
because people know your name, people have seen your account multiple times, and they're able to like relate to it, I guess, more because they've seen you so much. And even the fact like you saying like the 5 posts a day, in my opinion, if you post 5 times a day, like I think it's almost impossible not to have like a good video. Like you're just, it's like you're forcing it. It's like it's bound to happen, right?
Exactly.
And
keep
that's
in
how
mind,
you kind of like viewed it when you started that like 5 times a day?
yes, because I didn't know how to do social media, so you know, if everyone who's really good at social media is posting twice a day, they're advancing at a pace of learning from 2 videos a day. So for me
Yes.
to catch up, I need to do 5. And I'm not saying, you should do 10 or 20 or whatever. Do the number that you can do every day. If that's 1, but you put a huge amount of effort into it, then it's 1, but you put a huge amount of effort into it. Um, I preferred the spray and pray method. It seemed to work fairly well for me. I
Yeah,
didn't do the one super high quality video a week, like on YouTube or something. I've seen that work too. So, it's whatever method you want to use, as long as you're putting um, effort towards it. And it's not that effort necessarily equates to good quality. It's that effort equates to improving quality over time. Because no matter how much effort you put when you start, your quality is going to be trash. Like it just is, unless you have some sort of talent, whatever. But in
yeah,
general, yeah. So it's not that the quality is going to make you deserve the views. It's that it's going to teach you how to make stuff that deserves the views.
for sure. Yeah. I think that's like amazing advice for like people getting into social media. Hopefully someone listening could take that and use that. All right, let's get away from the social media part because you do so many things. We need to go over a lot of stuff. I saw in your story that you got third in your rock climbing competition. How did you like first get involved with rock climbing?
How did I first get involved in rock climbing? I think I just tried it once when I was very, uh, not even very. I tried it once when I was like a teenager, and I liked it, and then I went back and I liked it more, and then I found out that my school had a climbing team, because I was in Colorado at the time, so I got very lucky there, and then sort of got into it as a sport, and it was very fun. And I've been doing it ever since. Um, I'm at 4.5, coming up on 5 years of climbing now.
Nice. Yeah,
And
so sorry, I was gonna say, like, if I'm someone who's like completely new to the sport of like rock climbing, can you like explain to me like how a competition works and stuff? Like, how does it work? Like, how does the training leading up to the competition work? Like, I don't really know anything, so I'm very curious.
sure. So there's a proper way to do it, right? And then there's the way I sort of do it, because I'm not super serious about competition right now. My goal is more getting better at climbing. So if you want to be primed for competition as a rock climber, the week before you would decrease your volume so that you're more recovered. That way you can climb better. Um, and you would take probably more rest days and, be more recovered long term, all that sort of thing. But in general, to get better at rock climbing, you want to climb a lot. Climbing is one of those things that's like, it's one of those time sucks, because the actual strength required to rock climb is not that huge. Despite what people say, rock climbers are so strong, like their grip is insane. Like yes, compared to the average person, sure, but if you look at top calisthenics athletes versus top climbers, you're gonna find them pulling more weight, uh, pulling harder, faster. Climbing is a skill, more so than a strength sport. Of course, strength comes into it, but um, the more hours you put into it, the better you're gonna get. The more hours of focused work you put into climbing, the better you're gonna get. So the best way to get improved is to do as much volume as you can to begin with. All the best climbers I've met who have progressed extraordinarily quickly have climbed for stupid amounts of time every single day. I know a guy who got to an elite level of climbing in 9 months, um, because he trained 10 hours a day.
Holy.
Yeah, so it's not a limit strength sport in general. Of course, when you get good, then it is, right? But up
Yes.
until that point, it's like farmer strength. Farmers work every day, they increase slow. That's how tendons, like it's a tendon strengthening sport. So you're not going to get as much from this, max power stuff until later on when you're trying to like get those last few percentage points of strength and all that. Um, Understanding how to move on the wall is your best friend for climbing. Um, and it's best not to have too many time sucks like that in life. So I just keep to that one. That's my only like times up because I climb 30 hours a week. It takes a lot of my week to climb. And yeah, it's just the more time you put into it in general, the better you're going to get, especially when you start out. Of course, don't injure yourself. You can always climb at a lower intensity to not injure yourself, but still learn how to move on the wall. And yeah, you can get into the max power stuff later when you're like, very far into it. But for most beginners, I would give that advice.
For sure. So like if you're doing 30 hours of climbing a week, what does like a daily routine look like for you to get that in? Are
Um,
you doing it in the morning? Are you doing it in the afternoon?
Depends. Like I sort of what's more important to me is the stress on the tendons themselves throughout the day. So if it's 2 3 hour sessions to make 6 hours and then a shorter session the next day, sure. It's very adaptable for me because I have so many uh there are so many things in my life whose schedules change that it's sort of forced that I need to, adapt it accordingly. So I'll go through phases where I climb 40 hours a week and I climb, 8 hour days sometimes. And then there's phases where I just do maybe 2 hours and 2 hours a week, but maybe I'll do it morning and night. Morning, super chill session. I sauna to warm up and then I, climb really chill. Um, it'd be like doing a morning jog as an elite runner, right? Um, and then later in the day I'll do some like really hard climbing or something. Um, there's even recovery climbing where I'm recovering, so I'm gonna climb really light. That way I get blood flow to my fingers, but it's not straining anything.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I train.
Sounds good. Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I never like understood the sport of like rock climbing at all. I went rock climbing like a year or two ago and it was so much fun and I could see like there were some people that obviously took it more serious and they were amazing. So is it like you're in the gym and you're there for a couple hours, you're maybe socializing with other climbers and then you guys kind of have a community there?
Yes, it's a very efficient way to add a lot of those things in my life. Like it's a space for being social. It's exercise. It's I can work there if I want to. Like sometimes I'll like work in the sauna, to good thing I have phone insurance, but um, yeah, it's just a way that I can do all of that in kind of one place, and it's a really nice aspect of it. And I don't want to come off like, if you get into climbing, you better climb 30 hours a week, or you might as well not climb at all. Like there
Yeah.
are plenty of strong people that climb 3 hours a week. Usually those people used to climb a lot, and then they climb a lot less. Like you can maintain strength really well on so few hours of climbing a week, but um, yeah, like I know a lot of people who climb twice a week, 3 times a week, and they get quite good. Usually the frame and the lens I speak in is toward being one of the best in the world at something. Um, but these days there are so many different things to put your effort into that to be to be better than like 90% of people at something, it really does not take much effort. Um, like if you if you were to solely focus on that thing, right? Uh, it'd be easy, right? It's just that people have families. We have 3 meals a day to cook. Sometimes, we have jobs, so that takes a lot of our time. But if bearing in mind those things, that's just the way I see it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think like sorry, my next question was going to be, so like your short-term goal is to improve with rock climbing, right? Like what is your long-term goal with it, or you haven't really thought about it?
My long-term goal for everything I go into is to become excellent at it. Um, like if that isn't my goal, then I don't do it. Um, that's just kind of how I've always seen it. Uh,
Hmm.
I'm not necessarily a perfectionist. I don't have to be perfect at things, but the things that I will put a lot of effort into, it will be my goal to try and at least be one of the best in the world, even if I know that I won't be, right? But I work as if I'm trying to be best in the world at it. Because of course you have genetic variables and predispositions and all that sort of thing. But so my goal is to become one of the best climbers in the world. That's my goal. And I'm built fairly well for it, even just bone structure wise. So I think it's something that has merit. I tend to go into things that I know I have potential in long term. So I've never been much of a weightlifter because I know that the maximum amount of muscle I could put on is very, very small compared to the average person. Like, you can calculate your maximum amount of muscle based on the size of your bones. And for me, that is 165 pounds. That is not a lot because I have a
Hmm.
small frame. Like, I have, semi-wide shoulders, but my wrists and ankles are minuscule and my ribs are small. So it's
Yeah.
like, why should I put 15 years of dedicated work into bodybuilding? Of course, unless I'm super into bodybuilding and I'm just in love with it, that's different, right? But
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean,
If you have a passion for it.
sure. I just mean, if your goal is to become the best at something, then choose something uh, you have an advantage in, I would say. Um, I don't know. I have a passion for being good at shit. So that's kind of what I strive toward, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's great advice, bro, because a lot of people, like, for example, getting into the gym, they'll like look at their frame, they'll say, "Oh, I want to gain like 5 pounds of muscle." And then the people that always say that, from what I've seen, never end up sticking with it long term because, in my opinion, it's not that hard of a goal. Because you could reach that goal and then fall off, and it's not a big deal. But like for myself, like I want to compete like pro bodybuilding one day, and I always have that in the back of my mind, and that's why I'm able to like go to the gym 6 times a week. I feel that even if I didn't have that mindset, I wouldn't be able to like stay consistent with it.
Yeah, it's I feel very similarly. I think I hear sometimes the argument of like, don't set your goals too high because then you fall short and feel bad. But I don't know. I don't mind falling a little short of my goal, especially if I knew I progressed so much. And when you said 5 pounds of muscle, in my mind, I was like, man, that's a lot of muscle for someone short. That's like how, like, that's my mindset on it, because I know it's so hard for me to put on muscle. I was like, 5 pounds of muscle, that's so much. And then you were
Yeah,
like,
sorry, bro.
oh, it's such a small goal. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's just like it's funny you say that. The saying you just said, someone brought that up with me yesterday, and it's like I don't know why you would ever want to have a mindset like that ever. Like I rather try something really hard and fail than like try something I barely want to do and achieve it just to make myself feel good. Like at the end of the day, I want to like experience things. I want to achieve things that are hard in my life, and I don't care if like maybe I don't end up achieving it. It's like you said, the amount of years of learning that you do when you go through that process, the wisdom you gain from that journey. It's like, why not?
hmm I think what's interesting about um, I don't know how you necessarily call it, the self-help community, the self-improvement community, is
Yeah.
that a lot of people in the self-improvement community have gone through some sort of failure. So they know that how failure feels, I think, and I don't think a lot of people know how, like, real failure feels because they're a lot more scared of it. And so I think, like, we have this mindset because I mean, I don't know your history, of course, but I'm sure,
Yeah.
at least in my experience, a lot of people in the self-improvement community have failed at something, so they're a little more comfortable with failing than other people, I think, um,
Yeah.
which is very useful, I guess.
Yeah,
So
because that's so true, bro. Because what you said earlier, it's like I've never heard that from anyone that's like actively trying to improve themselves. It's always the person that like maybe didn't get what they wanted out of life or they didn't achieve what they wanted. They're usually the first ones to say that to someone that has like big dreams or big goals.
mhm. Yeah,
I guess
and
my next question for you, like since you brought it up, is like why did you like start this like kind of journey of like improving yourself, trying to inspire people? Like what made you want to start it like from the beginning? Not even just social media, just everything.
um, I think like many people, I think it started with diet and gym. That's pretty common.
Hmm.
For me, it was because I had um, I was born with my guts out, so um, you know, I was always in like pain growing up, right? My stomach was always in pain from eating, and so it was a very it was a very like hard hitting uh change to make, you know, like I'm trying to phrase this correctly. It made a big difference to my life to try and improve it because I was in a place where um baseline was not good, right?
Hmm.
So it's very hard to make a change when your baseline is good. It's very
Yes.
hard to save money when you don't need to save money. It's
Yes.
very
Yeah.
hard to, you know, find a job when you already have a job. Um, it's much easier to find a job when you're like about to go to the streets and you can't afford rent. Then you'd be super motivated to apply for jobs, right? So,
Yes.
it was more of a place of that where it was like, I am in pain. I was 100 pounds at my same height and frame for reference. Um,
Damn.
yeah, I'm now 142. So imagine my skinny ass with 42 less pounds. Yeah, it was bad. You know, so I started experimenting with diet and the improvements to my physicality and my mental were vast, because of where I started, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah. The change is so much, right?
right. So I think that's what kind of started that chain reaction of like, well, I already improved this, so I might as well try and improve this. And I already improved that, so I bet I could improve this too. And of course, there are things that are harder to improve than others. Um, for me, it was very easy to, not easy, but it was easier to improve diet and health because it's very tangible. Um, but nowadays I'm working more toward things that aren't as tangible, so it's hard for me to, it's harder, So
Yeah.
I think it's a great starting point for people is health and fitness because it's tangible.
Yes.
You can measure it, right? You can measure the size of your bicep if you want to get huge, right? So I think it's a very great way to do it.
Yeah. And how much has like your mindset changed from like the low point in your life to like where you are now?
It hasn't changed that much. I used to be a little more closed-minded than I am now. That's not even, that's somewhat of a lie, I guess. It's about half and half. Like in some ways I'm more closed-minded. I'm more willing to say no to things. But in other ways, I'm more open-minded to the possibility that I could get better at things, which I used to not be so much as. So I used to be more closed-minded, like, oh, I'm bad at this. I will always be bad at this because that's the way my brain is made. And I still think that way to some extent sometimes, but I also understand, like, you know, I look at these things over the whole scale of the whole range of skill, right? So
Hmm.
from absolutely trash at something to the best in the world, like how good could I get at this thing given the amount of time I'm putting into it? And usually the
Yeah.
answer is not something I'm satisfied with, so I won't go into it.
Yeah, I
uh,
see.
it's like I don't have time in the day to become, I don't know, the world's best reader or something, right? So I guess I will stick to reading what I want to read and just do it for fun. You only have a few things you can only do a few things really well. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit, but
It's
mindset
okay,
has
bro.
mindset has changed somewhat, but not that much. I still feel very much the same base person with more information um, to use when thinking about things. I think that's the main difference is that I have more data. Like I've already improved at this thing, that means I can
Yes.
improve that thing, right? So not necessarily like, oh, I changed my whole personality. Now I'm used to be super negative and now I'm not. It's just a lot of these thoughts come from the data that you're inputting in your mind, right?
Yeah.
So if all your data shows that you're going to be shitty at something, then you're probably going to think you're going to be shitty at something,
Yeah.
right? So changing data, I think, is really important. Um,
100%. And I don't even blame people. And I understand, like, if you're at a point in your life where nothing's working, there's zero success in any aspect of your life, of course it's going to be hard for that person to see past that, right? And at least like most people I know, they have been at that point in their life where they didn't see a way out of it. But like the second you start, like you said, you improved your health and fitness, and you realize, okay, if I can improve this, I can improve this other aspect. That's when they start to become more optimistic and more hopeful, you know?
mhm,
So I'd even
definitely.
blame people in the beginning if they don't see themselves past this current situation, you know? Like, why would you? You have no reason to,
Hmm. Did you
for
yourself
sure.
start with health and fitness as well, or?
Yeah, so the same thing with me. I was like grew up really skinny. Like I was 80 pounds in grade 7. I was already like 5'7", and I'm 5'8" now, so like I only grew 1 more inch. And I started working out because like everyone in my family, not everyone in my family called me skinny, but like no one outside of that called me skinny because most guys were skinny at that age. So then I started working out, like doing calisthenics at home. I like put on some weight, and then
Mm,
from there I like just focused on the gym for like 3 4 years, and nothing else in my life was improving, but just like the health and fitness was.
yep.
And then that's when I discovered, like, building a better mindset. I like discovered stoicism. Then I like wanted to learn about business, wanted to try to make money with business, and then I like got closer to God. So it's like you said, and I agree with you like wholeheartedly, is that when you are trying to get better at something, you can't do a million things at once. Like for me, it was always like there was one focus, I got really good at it, and then I moved on to the next thing, and then this thing kind of maintained while this thing was trying to like get better. Like
Right.
I didn't go into like being like a nobody in the sense of self improvement and then trying to get closer to God, trying to work out more, trying to read more, trying to build a better mindset, trying to make money. Like it's impossible to do all those things.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to touch on, actually. I was for the listeners. I was going to be like, well, I know we're sitting here talking about all these things that we perhaps improved on, but just do one. Just do one. Don't go crazy.
Yes,
You know.
100%. Because like I read this book called Essentialism. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
So it's a really good book. It's basically about how like there's this diagram, and it shows that like if you have like 8 things that you want to get better at, the arrow is like very small coming out of the circle, right? But
Hmm.
if you have one thing you really want to get good at, and all the time that you were putting into those 8 things you put into that one, it would just compound quicker and you'd get really good at it, and then you would maintain that whilst trying something new, right? Because like Samuel, like if you just wanted to stay the level you're at rock climbing, you wouldn't have to train that much. Like
Right.
you
Exactly.
could dial back the training and still be really good at it, and then you would focus on something else, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of like where I learned that from, was that book. And I'm like, wow, this is like so important. And it was like me, bro. I was trying like a bunch of different business ventures and like nothing was working. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, now I'm gonna focus on just these 2 things, and that's it. And I've actually seen like results now, right?
Definitely. Yes. Um, I do want to say, for those listening, there are so every skill has a hyper growth phase and then a lagging phase to where it sort of rounds out in the amount of better that you can keep getting at something. So I think there are two like strategies to that. Number one is it's important to understand like where does this skill start to level off? Because for different skills, it's very different. Um, some skills you can keep getting better at almost forever, and
Yeah,
the later a skill levels out, the more time you're gonna have to put into it to get better than most people at it. So if you're gonna do one of those skills, it's gonna suck up a lot more of your time than anything else. There are a lot of skills in the world that round out, that level off very, very quickly, and those can be useful to learn in a short period of time, and then you can maintain that knowledge. Um, but at the same time, the 0.01% that you are better at someone else might be the difference between Usain Bolt and the second place dude that no one knows who the name is of, right? So
exactly.
balancing those two is extremely difficult and very circumstantial. So it's worth putting a lot of time into dissecting what you want to get good at. over the next 10 years, 15
Yeah.
years even. Start with 5, I would say. But yeah, it's because there's so many different strategies. I'm writing a book on this exact subject right now,
Really?
to do with fitness in particular, like explaining like, okay, here are all these different types of fitness. Here is where they, in general, here's where they level out. Here are the genetic components so that you know, like, if it's worth putting the extra time to get that extra 0.01%. That's kind of the whole book, but it's it's going to be a very long book. I'm like 60 pages in. It's going to be a long time before it's out. So
Okay.
it's just a good,
It's
I
like a
think it's,
guide. It's like a
yeah,
guide to starting fitness, right?
yeah, pretty much. I think it's more for people who are a few years into fitness, because when you're starting
Okay.
out, do anything and you will get better,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, you don't have to like overthink it too much. But for those people who are, you're a few years into it now and you want to revisit and sort of, you know, gather your thoughts, that sort of thing. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's the most useful frame I've adopted in terms of mindset, um, just in general, altogether, for any skill. I know it's really general, but really, really, really helpful, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because like you said, I feel that maybe the first 1,000 hours of something you're trying, like you're gonna progressively get good at it, like constantly. But maybe from 1,000 hours to 10,000 hours, like the incremental progress that you make is so small, and that's when like a lot of people quit because they never even understood from the beginning that that's how it worked, right? Like you weren't gonna get amazingly good at it forever, right?
Right.
And it's the same thing with social media. Like you might blow up, gain a bunch of followers and stuff, but that's not always going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Okay, my next question for you is, you mentioned that you're a model, right?
Yeah.
So like what advice would you give to someone who wants to get into the model industry, and do you believe it's worth it to get into it? Because I
No.
know there's a lot of mixed opinions, right, about the modeling industry.
Uh, so my modeling is more of a tool than an actual, I don't know, whatever you want to call it,
Like a
career.
career, I guess.
Yeah. If you have the qualities to become, so modeling is very crystal in that, um, if you look like a bird and you're like 7 feet tall, please go model. Like it's a great way to make a lot of money really fast. You won't even make
Yeah.
that much money. You'll make like 6 figures, but you'll do it really fast. Um, and if you have those qualities, that'll be 0.01% of your listeners, right?
Yes.
For everyone
Probably not
else,
even one of them.
for everyone else, uh, you know, if you want to use modeling as a tool to meet people who are sort of related to the modeling industry, great. If you want to use modeling because you want awesome pictures for your social media, great. If you want to use modeling because you want to know how to, like, let's say you're into acting and you want to use modeling to know, to get better at being on camera, great. Like, it's a very low time commitment thing, especially if you have an agent, um, who's, applying you to stuff, all that sort of thing. Like, you know, uh, yeah, I think that's the best way to go about it. Like, there's a lot of ways you can use it as a tool. As far as a career goes, just like any other career, you can put in a lot of work over a number of years and become successful at it for most people, because
Yeah.
modeling has so many different branches that you can look very strange, right? And still get a lot of jobs because that's what they want.
Yeah, that's
Everyone's
what the brand is.
precisely. So, if you're super passionate about modeling and you love modeling, great. But if you just think like, oh, let me use this this will be a great way to like a make money quick sort of thing. Like there are so many other strategies that work better, I think.
For sure. Yeah. And what is like your not your routine with modeling, but how often are you doing like gigs? Is it something that you actively look for, or do you have an agent? Like how does it work for you?
So I have an agent. Um, if I were serious about modeling, I would put more time into applying and making my profiles better and all that sort of thing. I'm not super into it. I more so just wait for jobs whose requirements are very unique and that I match, which isn't very often, but the time commitment's very low. The pay is very high per hour. So it's just a great, like, you know, little thing off to the side that kind of just, it feels very passive to me. I show up, I sit around, I eat their free snacks, and they take pictures of my face, and I get money. Like, it's great in that regard.
Yeah.
Um, if I were to start putting a lot more time into it, I don't think I would get that much more out of it than I am now, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um,
So the ROI is not that good, eh?
yeah, like the return on investment now is amazing because my
Yes.
input is so low, right? But
But if you start to put more time,
yeah, I think I could make, if I put in all my effort towards modeling, right? I think it's possible to make maybe up to six figures now that I've been doing it for years, but um, I wouldn't make any more than that. And in fact, I would probably start making less and less over time as I got older.
yeah.
uh, so it's just not really worth it to me. Someone like my brother, who sort of matches a lot more jobs, I think would do really well, really fast at it, right? He's taller and more commercial. He has more of a commercial look.
I see.
Um, so it kind of depends on your look and everything like that. But um, yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about it.
Yeah, with the modeling industry. Okay. All right, Samuel, what is one thing about you that you feel many people get wrong or don't understand? Do you ever feel like misunderstood because of the social media, or is there something that no one really knows about you?
Uh, I don't know. I don't put out a lot of content where I speak, I suppose. Like most of my content is like either funny unhinged stuff or fitness stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'm more uh 'cause my background is in like the science and engineering world, so it's kind of a weird opposition there. Uh but so I think usually people don't know that like I can actually speak and have conversations and in a way that's sort of, what at least what I hope to be engaging. Um Usually my stuff's very simple because I think that's what works. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think it works to just, at least right now, with the amount of authority that I have, it doesn't work for me to speak so much. At least on my channel, because that's not what it is. Um, if I were to do a channel in the future, it might be more geared towards, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, that's one of the reasons I'm writing a book now and that sort of thing. But yeah, so I think in general, I might start adapting toward more talking stuff in the future. But for now, I think most people assume like I'm just like really strong and unhinged, which is kind of true. But you know, uh,
They don't really know the other side of you.
right, and that's partially purposeful. So I'm not that surprised. But yeah, I guess that's what I would say.
For sure, yeah. So based on like what you post, who you are as a person, like what kind of influence do you want to have on people? Because obviously, like you having like the big accounts that you do, you're clearly gonna like even if you don't want to, you're gonna have like some sort of influence, right? Like most of the time,
Mhm.
it's probably good. Someone sees you rock climbing, then they think, "Hey, I want to go rock climbing," right? But what type of influence do you want to leave?
I think I want to leave the prospect that people should take. I really think people should take responsibility for um, their health and fitness um, in a way that benefits everyone because healthy people are smarter. Like even someone who's really smart, if they get healthy, their brain function just improves. Like it's
Yeah,
just a really low hanging fruit to improving society. Um, and so it's like, okay, everyone thinks better, everyone moves better, people live longer, so that the people who learn crap can tell other people the crap they learned, and
Hmm.
the people can spend more time learning and not having heart attacks and that sort of thing. Um, Also, like, the cost of healthcare is increasing at a rate which I think it's going to level out before it gets to this number, because everyone loves to extrapolate in linear fashion, which isn't how it works. But regardless, the statistic is that in about 50 years that our medical costs will be higher than the GDP. Uh,
Yeah, holy.
so, uh, yeah, like, it's such a low-hanging fruit, and it doesn't require that much, and it can improve so many people's lives so fast. It did for me, it did for so many people I know. People, even my like friend groups over the years will see how much passion I have for fitness, and then they'll start adapting fitness, and they're like, wow, like that, it wasn't that hard. Like,
Yes,
I had a friend go from 200 and what was it, 270 pounds down to 180 in
that's amazing.
like half a year, you know, uh, and he felt great, and he felt more mentally clear, and it just brings so much benefit to people's lives that it's really, I love low hanging fruits. Like, I love where I love taking advantage where shit is easy, right? So for me, I have a passion, I love improving people's lives, or at least trying to, and it's such a low hanging fruit. Even during this stage of my life where I don't have that much influence, I don't have that much power to do that, even if I wanted to, the little amount that I do have, in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of um, how many people I can quote unquote speak to, it's a really big lever for hopefully at least inspiring some people. And I've gotten, you know, lots and lots of messages of people who got into fitness, at least they report, because of me, and that makes me feel great. Um, so, yeah.
For sure, yeah. All right. My last question, this kind of like encompasses like the whole podcast, is Samuel, how do you want to be remembered?
Um, I don't think it matters, to be honest. Like, I'll be dead. Like, why should I care if I'm dead? I don't know. Like, while I'm alive, I want to be remembered as someone, or I want to be thought of as someone who brings good to humanity, and who inspires, who informs, who entertains, who adds to society in whatever way I can. So, there is value in anything you can add to society that makes people's lives better or makes people feel good. And I think all those things are great. So in whatever ways I can do that, that gives me tremendous purpose. Um, and yeah.
For sure. Yeah, the only reason why I asked this question is because I used to do this podcast with two other people, and
Mm.
they no longer do it anymore. And we came up with this question together, and we always like I always end the podcast with this with a guest, because like your answer was different from the last guest, and then the last guest answer was different from the other. So it's just such a good question to see, I guess, where people's like mindsets are at, and like what they truly want out of their lives, right?
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if you could stay a bit after, Samuel, to discuss like how the podcast went, but I'm going to close it out here.
Okay.
Thank you guys for watching the Insightful Podcast, episode 14. Thank you, Samuel, for being on. It truly means a lot.
Yeah, of course. Definitely. It's very fun.
And to all the people listening, like, subscribe, comment any future guests you want or any future topics. And everyone take care, and thank you for being here.